Chapter 6. A Head for Heights. Catwoman ran and jumped across the rooftops to the Hidare factory. She was wearing her leather trousers and her long black gloves with the diamond claws. She wore 2 black belts across her stomach and the cat mask over her face and hair. She saw Armando outside the factory. He was getting into a car. When the car drove away, Catwoman followed, jumping from rooftop to rooftop. The car stopped at a nightclub. Catwoman followed Armando inside. The barman looked at Catwoman in surprise. "What can I do for you?" he asked. "I'd like a milk without the vodka. No ice." As she drank the glass of milk, she saw Armando going to the dance floor. She finished her milk and followed him. 2 dancers in black leather were dancing with a whip. Catwoman took the whip from them. "Excuse me?" she said as she began to dance, circling the whip around her. She moved towards Armando and cracked the whip close to his nose. Then she put it around his neck and pulled him to the back door. Armando flew through the door and fell on his back in the street outside. Catwoman jumped onto his stomach. Armando tried to get his gun, but Catwoman got it first and threw it away. "You don't know me, do you?" she said. "Well, I know you. You killed somebody a few nights ago. She was a good person. She was a friend of mine. Why did you do it?" Armando didn't answer. He was frightened. Catwoman brought her diamond claws close to his face and moved them dangerously. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Why did you kill that nice girl?" "They told me to do it," cried Armando. "They told me to open the pipes. She heard too much." "What did she hear?" asked Patience. "I don't know," Armando said. "Something about Bolene, perhaps. There's something wrong with Bolene." "Of course. Now I understand," said Patience. "And Hidare isn't telling people?" "That's right," said Armando. Catwoman got into the Hidare factory through a window in the roof. She went quickly to the room where she had heard the conversation about Bolene. When she opened the door, she saw computers on the floor and papers, broken glass and plastic everywhere, and a body. Dr. Slavicki was lying on the floor. Patience could see that he was dead. Someone had shot him. She heard the sound of police cars and looked behind her. An old man, a cleaner, was standing there. "Please don't kill me too," he said. Patience ran past him through the door and escaped. Sally was watching the news when Patience arrived at the hospital with a bag full of her things. "Wow, Patience, you look amazing," she said. "I love your hair, and those clothes are fantastic. This guy is really good for you." "Thanks," said Patience, smiling. "Are you going to be okay?" "They don't know what the problem is, so I'm going home. Have you heard the news? A mad woman murdered Slavicki last night. She was dressed as a cat. Look." Patience looked at the television and saw a police picture of Catwoman. She looked horrible. "I hope I don't really look like that," she thought. Then George Hidare was speaking. "We are all very sad about Dr. Slavicki's death. But don't worry. Bolene will be in the shops next week. We're going to give women what they want. One mad person isn't going to stop us." Patience was so angry that she had to sit down. Sally opened a small pot of Bolene. "Oh no, it's nearly empty," she said. "When did those headaches start?" asked Patience. "A few months ago." "Then please do something for me. Stop using bowline. You're lovely as you are." Tom Lone had kept the coffee cup that Patience had given him. It was on his desk. He looked at it now. Then, in surprise, he looked at the box that had had the chocolate cakes in. He picked them both up and looked at them again, more carefully. Then he took them to a detective who knew about handwriting. "Did the same person write 'sorry' on the cup and the box?" asked Lone. "Well, some things are almost the same," said the detective. "But there are lots of differences, too." He pointed to the coffee cup. "This person is not very confident." He pointed to the box. "But this person is extremely confident. And she's angry. She may even be dangerous. They're different people." "I'm very happy about that," said Tom. "It's going to be a great weekend." Tom and Patience climbed onto the big Ferris wheel at the fun fair. The Ferris wheel went round, and they went up and up until they could see half the city. Then the Ferris wheel made a loud noise and stopped. "I think we have a problem," said Lone. "We could be up here for a long time." Patience moved closer to him in the seat. "I don't think that's a problem," she said. Suddenly, the Ferris wheel jumped and the seats moved dangerously. People began to scream. Lone looked down. Black smoke was coming from the machine that turned the Ferris wheel. The machine was breaking. If it broke completely, the Ferris wheel would turn too fast, and everyone would fall out. "I'll be back in a minute," he shouted to Patience. He climbed out of their seat and down the wheel towards the machine. Patience heard someone crying. It was a small boy. He was in a seat on his own. As she watched, the Ferris wheel jumped again and the boy almost fell out. He held the seat tightly with his hands, but his legs hung in the air. "Don't worry," Patience shouted. "I'm coming to get you." Like a cat, she jumped quickly towards the center of the Ferris wheel and then out again towards the little boy's seat. At the same time, Lone reached the machine. It was going to break very soon. Quickly, he looked for something to stop it. Patience jumped 5 meters up to the boy's seat. She held the seat with one hand and the boy with the other. "It's okay. I've got you," she said. Lone found a long piece of metal. He took it and pushed it into the machine. The Ferris wheel made another terrible noise, then stopped moving. Suddenly, the seat moved and Patience and the boy began to fall. Patience managed to hold another seat, and she caught the boy with her legs. The boy held her tightly as Patience looked for a way to the ground. "You're okay, Patience. I'm going to bring you down slowly." Patience looked down and saw Lone. He was turning the machine by hand. When they reached the ground, Lone took the boy from Patience and gave him to his mother. Then he turned to Patience. "I don't know how you did that," he said. "Well done." "You did a good job, too," Patience replied, and she took him in her arms. Chapter 7. A Night at the Theater. "Let's celebrate," said Lone to Patience as they walked away from the fun fair. "Would you like to have dinner?" "I'd love to, but I can't. Not tonight," said Patience sadly. She really liked Lone, but she needed to see George Heder tonight. Catwoman looked up and saw the camera on the wall outside Hedder's big house. She cracked her whip at it, and it pointed a different way. Then she climbed the wall and jumped across to a first-floor window. She looked in and saw lots of books and papers and a large desk. It was George Hedder's home office. With one diamond claw, she cut a circle in the glass, opened the window, and climbed inside. She looked at the computer disks on the desk, but there was nothing about Bowline. Then she walked into the hall. Bang! Catwoman fell down the stairs and lay on the floor. She didn't move. The lights went on and she could see Laurel Hedder with a golf club at the top of the stairs. Laurel walked down the stairs and kicked Catwoman. "You can't rob this house," she said. Catwoman jumped up, took the golf club and threw it across the room. "You're that cat person," said Laurel. "You killed Slavicki. What do you want?" "Where's the man of the house?" asked Catwoman. "My husband. Outside, he's always out," Laurel replied. Suddenly she tried to run up the stairs, but Catwoman jumped on her and they fell down the stairs again together. "When you see your husband," said Catwoman, "tell him that I know about Bowline." "What about Bowline?" asked Laurel. "It makes people ill," said Catwoman, "and it can kill them." "That's not true," said Laurel. "I've been using it for years." "Well, someone killed Slavicki. They wanted to stop him talking." "Are you saying that my husband is a murderer?" said Laurel, surprised. "Tell me where he is. Then I can ask him myself," said Catwoman. Laurel went to a table and picked up an invitation. She gave it to Catwoman. "This is where you can find George," Laurel said. "If you're right about Bowline, I'll help you. How can I find you?" Catwoman thought for a moment and then picked up Laurel's mobile phone from the table. "I'll take this," she said. "I'm so sorry about everything." "I've lived my life for him," said Laurel. "Now it's time to live your own life," said Catwoman. There were crowds of people in the theater when Catwoman arrived. She walked around the building and saw an open window on the second floor. She climbed up to it and got in. She soon found George Hedder watching the show from a private box. He was sitting next to Drina, the beautiful girl in the Bowline adverts. Suddenly, Drina stood up and left her seat. She looked angry. Catwoman smiled. Catwoman sat in Drina's seat. "Hello, George," she said. "Do you like my claws?" She quickly cut him across the face. The music was very loud, so nobody could hear his scream. Catwoman pushed Hedder against a wall. Her diamond claws cut his skin. "I know all about Bowline," she said. "I know that it can kill people. Patience knew about Bowline too. So you killed her." "What?" shouted Hedder. "I didn't kill her. I told her to leave the company." Suddenly the door opened and several policemen with guns ran in. Catwoman jumped out of the box towards the dancers in the show. Everybody clapped. They thought that she was one of the dancers. Then she jumped up towards the theater lights. Suddenly she heard a voice. "Stop right there." It was Tom Lone, and he was pointing a gun at her. He climbed up towards her, but then he began to fall. Catwoman jumped to save him. She threw his gun away and then kissed his nose. "You're under arrest," he said, but Catwoman escaped from him. Lone went after her and kicked her in the stomach. Then Catwoman saw a rope. She jumped onto it. The rope took her to the other side of the theater. Lone tried to catch the rope, but he fell. Catwoman caught him and held him tightly, with her legs under his arms. But Lone pulled suddenly. The rope broke, and a moment later they were falling very quickly downwards. Luckily, Catwoman caught an electric line and they were safe. They crashed onto the floor of the theater. Catwoman looked up and saw lots of policemen all around them. They were all pointing guns at her. "You're under arrest," said Lone for the second time. He reached for her mask, but Catwoman was too quick for him. She jumped towards the electric line and pointed it at the back of the theater. Bang! All the lights went out. Nobody could see anything, except Catwoman. Cats can see in the dark. This is terrible, really terrible. Heddery was shouting into the telephone in his office. Who is she? And how does she know everything? What can we do? It's okay, Georgie. Laurel was standing at the door. Don't be frightened. Don't be frightened, shouted Hadar. We're going to lose everything and you tell me not to be frightened? No, George, said Laurel as she moved towards him. I'm telling you to be a man. For once in your life, be a man. Hadar hit Laurel across the face. Laurel didn't move, but Hadar screamed. His arm hurt badly. His wife's face was really hard, like a rock. You stupid man, she said. Chapter 8. A Wanted Woman. Patience was looking in the mirror. She was holding a long dress in one hand and a very short one in the other. Which one should I wear tonight? She asked Sally. Wear the long one at church, the short one at the beach. I'm taking you shopping, said Sally. In the end, they found the perfect dress that was neither long nor short. Patience was waiting for Lone in the Japanese restaurant. She was watching the fish swimming in a big fish tank next to the table. Her face was close to the glass. I'm hungry, she thought. Pretty, said Lone behind her. Thank you, said Patience. Well, you are pretty, said Lone, but I meant the fish. Patience went red. They sat down at the table and ordered dinner. Have you heard of Catwoman? He asked as he poured her a drink. Patience felt cold. Yeah, she said after a moment. She carries a whip, doesn't she? She kissed me, said Lone. Really? Said Patience. It was exciting when Lone talked about Catwoman like this. I think I'm a little jealous, she thought. How strange. So what do you think about me and Catwoman? Asked Lone. A waiter arrived and put a huge plate of fish on the table. Patience quickly took a piece of fish and put it in her mouth. That depends, she said. Do you like bad girls? I'm a policeman, he said. I put bad people in prison. Perhaps you don't always know who's good and who's bad, said Patience. You're different, he told her. You're special, and I want to know more about you. Do you really? She asked. Yes, I do, he said. Lone looked at Patience. She was asleep on the sofa and she looked beautiful. He went to the bathroom for a glass of water. As he was walking back across the room, he stepped on something hard. It cut his foot. Ow, he said quietly. He didn't want to wake Patience up. What was it? He picked it up to see. It looked like a diamond claw. Lone looked at it for a moment. Then he began to realize the truth. Oh no, he thought. The cup and the box with sorry on them. The way that Patience had saved the boy on the Ferris wheel. He was beginning to understand everything. He sat down with his glass of water and tried to think. How could he get proof that Patience and Catwoman were the same person? He looked at the glass. Patience had drunk from the glass last night and left a red lip print on it. And Catwoman had left a red kiss on his nose at the theater. There was a photo of it at the police station. Patience woke up. Her mobile was ringing. "Hello? It's me," said Laurel. "I can't believe it, but you were right. I've got proof. We have to stop George. Bowline will be in the shops by Monday. Can you come to the house immediately?" "Okay," said Patience. "I'll be there as soon as I can." Patience looked around the flat. "Tom," she called. Where was he? She saw a note on the chair. "Sorry, I've got to go tea." That's not very nice, she thought. Oh well, I've got more important things to think about. Catwoman arrived at Hedar's house and climbed in through a window on the first floor. "I'm so pleased you came," said Laurel. "What did you find?" asked Catwoman. "Enough proof to put someone in prison for a very long time. Come and see." She turned and walked into her husband's office. Catwoman followed her. "I know it's difficult for you," she said. "But you're doing the right thing." "Yes," said Laurel. Then, almost to herself, she continued, "I did everything that they wanted. Hedare Beauty was nothing before I did their adverts. But then, when I was 40, they didn't want me anymore. I was too old." They went into Hedare's office. "It's all there," said Laurel, "behind the desk." Catwoman looked behind the desk and saw George Hedare's body on the floor. It was full of bullets, and there were claw cuts everywhere. "What do you think?" "The claw cuts were quite difficult, but I think they work," laughed Laurel. "You killed him," said Catwoman. "Yes, I did. Nobody's going to stop Bowline. Not Slavicky, not George, and not you." Laurel gave Catwoman something in a scarf. "Take this. And can I get you anything? Some nice fish? A glass of milk?" She laughed again. Catwoman looked inside the scarf. It was a gun. Suddenly, Laurel pressed something on the desk and an alarm rang out loudly. "Oh no," she screamed. "George!" Armando ran into the room. "It's the Catwoman! She's got a gun!" shouted Laurel. Catwoman pointed the gun at Laurel. "Sorry, Kitty. There aren't any bullets in it," Laurel said. "You used all the bullets when you killed my husband." Catwoman meowed and ran out of the room. The front door opened downstairs, and crowds of policemen entered the house. Catwoman ran into Laurel's bedroom. When she saw the cupboards full of clothes, she had an idea. She took a bag and threw some sports clothes into it. She looked out of the window and saw policemen and police cars everywhere. 2 men were carrying George Hedar's body to one of the vehicles. When the body was inside, the men got into the front seat. As soon as they started to move, Catwoman jumped. She landed on the roof of the vehicle and lay down flat. When they went under a bridge, Catwoman jumped up and held on tightly. Then she climbed down to the road. She took the sports clothes out of the bag and quickly put them on. Why was I so stupid? Patience thought. Why did I believe Laurel? She walked past some shops. Suddenly, she saw a large screen with the words, "Catwoman kills again." It was the news. Oh no, thought Patience. Catwoman has got to disappear fast. Chapter 9. Why don't you believe me? Patience opened the door of her flat. Lone was standing inside, pointing a gun at her. "I'm sorry, Patience," he said. "I've come to arrest you." Patience was at the police station. I don't like this room, she thought. There were no windows, just a table and 2 chairs. How long had she been here now? It seemed like hours. Lone sat opposite her. "I've told you again and again," she said. Slavicky had proof that Bolin was dangerous. Laurel killed him to keep him quiet. George discovered the truth, and she killed him too. Why don't you believe me? "The gun was in your hand," said Lone. "The gun that had killed Hedar a few seconds before. The gun that killed Slavicky. You murdered them. Why should I believe anything different?" "Because you know me, and because sometimes things aren't as they seem. Do you remember the first time that you saw me?" "Yeah," said Lone. "What did you think?" "I thought you were rescuing a cat." "No, you didn't. You thought I wanted to kill myself. But you were wrong. And you're wrong now. Please believe me, Tom." "I'm trying to believe you, Patience," he said. "But I just can't. I'm sorry." He called to a policeman outside the door. "Lock her up again." As she followed the policeman, Patience started to cry. But then she stopped feeling sad and began to feel very angry. "Be a good kitty," laughed the policeman as he locked her door. Catwoman hissed at him. At the Hedder office building, Laurel Hedder was talking to a crowd of newspaper reporters. "My husband dreamed of a world where every woman could be beautiful," she was saying. "I'm going to make that dream come true. Tomorrow I will give you Bolin." "And nothing is going to stop me now," she thought. "It's time to turn out the lights, prisoners," shouted the policeman in the hall. The moon was shining through the window into Patience's room. Midnight, the cat squeezed through the bars. "Hello, Midnight," said Patience. "You've given me an idea." She got up and put her arm through the bars. Then she turned her head completely around and put that through too. Finally, she squeezed her body through the bars. Catwoman found a window and looked out. It was a long way down. 10 floors. She saw a car, a Jaguar, coming down the road. She smiled. She jumped out of the window and landed on her 4 legs. The Jaguar stopped suddenly with a loud scream of its wheels. The driver got out. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Never better, thank you," said Catwoman, as she jumped into his car and drove off. Laurel Hedder was giving pots of Bolin to female reporters. After they've started using this, they won't be able to stop, she was thinking. And I'll make lots of money. She smiled to herself. "Excuse me, Mrs. Hedder." Lone appeared from nowhere. "Have you got a moment? I'd like to ask you a few more questions." Laurel felt cold, but she smiled. "Yes, of course, Detective Lone. Please excuse me, everyone." She walked with Lone to her office. "I saw Catwoman with a gun and my husband's dead body on the floor," Laurel said. "There were claw cuts all over him." "But there weren't any claw cuts on Slavicky's body," said Lone. And Catwoman didn't have a reason to kill either Hedare or Slavicki. He remembered Patience's explanation at the police station. And there was something about Laurel Hedare that he didn't like. He decided to test her. "I know who really killed your husband," he said. "I know about Bolene, too, and I've got proof. It was you." "Me? Well, if you've got proof, why haven't you arrested me?" she asked. "You're a rich woman. I thought perhaps you would pay me for my silence," he replied. She looked at him coolly. "How much do you want?" she asked. "You've just given me the only thing that I want. You've just told me that it was you." Laurel took a gun out of the desk. She pointed it at Lone. Lone tried to take out his gun, but Laurel was too quick for him. Bang went her gun. The bullet hit him in the shoulder. He dropped his gun and fell against the wall. "Don't be stupid," he shouted. "You don't want to kill a policeman." "Don't I?" she said. She hit him across the face and he fell to the floor. "Now I'm going to kill you." She pointed the gun at his head. Suddenly there was a hiss and a whip cracked. The gun flew from Laurel's hand. Catwoman jumped into the room. "Did you really think that you'd win?" she asked. "Well, think again." She helped Lone to get up and walked with him to the door. She didn't see the gun on the floor. As soon as they had left, Laurel ran over to the desk and picked up the phone. "Come up here," she shouted. "Now!" It was time to kill Lone and Catwoman. Chapter 10. Like a stone, Catwoman helped Lone down the stairs. She knew they were in great danger. They had to escape fast. Armando ran up the stairs towards them with a gun. Bang! They turned back and went up again. They found a door and went through it. It was a large, dark room. The only light was the light of the moon. There were photographs of Laurel everywhere. Armando ran into the room after them. Laurel and Wesley were with him. Catwoman and Lone hid behind a huge photo. Lone was very weak. He had lost a lot of blood. "Listen," he said. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you." "It's okay," she said. "Stay here. I'll be back when it's safe." She disappeared into the darkness. Catwoman jumped up and sat on top of a wall of photographs. She could look down on Laurel, Armando, and Wesley. She saw them go different ways. She decided to attack Wesley first. She jumped on him and hit his face with her knee. He fell to the ground, then lay still. "One down, two to go," she thought. At that moment, Armando found some blood on the floor. He followed the blood to the place behind the huge photo. But Lone wasn't there. Suddenly, Armando heard someone behind him. He turned and Lone hit him in the face. Once, and then again. Armando fell and everything went black. Catwoman was sitting on top of the wall of photographs again. She was watching Laurel below. When Laurel was exactly under her, Catwoman dropped a large box. It missed Laurel by a few centimeters. Catwoman jumped to the floor. Laurel shot at her again and again, but Catwoman was too quick. Then suddenly, Catwoman was on the floor and Laurel was standing over her. She was pointing her gun at Catwoman's head. "Goodbye, Kitty," said Laurel with a smile. She tried to shoot, but nothing happened. There were no bullets. The gun was empty. She threw the gun away and jumped on Catwoman. Laurel hit Catwoman again and again, pushing her back towards a huge window. Catwoman tried to hurt Laurel, but she couldn't. Laurel's skin was as hard as stone. "You can't hurt me," said Laurel. "If a woman stops using bowline, her skin falls off. But if she continues using it, her skin becomes perfect. I've been using bowline for years. My skin is like a stone. I can't feel anything. But you can." Laurel hit Catwoman again. Catwoman fell and a piece of metal cut her leg. She couldn't stand up. "Who are you anyway?" Laurel asked. "A madwoman? A robber?" "I'm Patience Phillips," said Catwoman. "You killed me." "Patience Phillips? The designer?" Laurel laughed. "You're nobody." She kicked Catwoman. "You're nothing." Patience was suddenly frightened. "She's right," she thought. "I can only paint. I can't fight." Laurel took a metal pipe and brought it down hard on Catwoman's head. Blood ran down her face. "And now everyone will believe that you killed a policeman too." "A policeman," thought Catwoman. "Lone, the man that I love." She became very, very angry. At that moment, Laurel brought down the metal pipe against the window and it broke. Catwoman began to fall. It was 30 floors to the street below. "I can't let this happen," she thought. "No way. I can't let Laurel win." She suddenly became strong again and jumped into the air. She hung from a pipe high above Laurel. Then she jumped down. "Beauty isn't only about skin," she said. Then she gave a very loud meow and jumped on Laurel. Laurel escaped, but Catwoman cracked her whip and caught her again. She hit Laurel across the face and cut her skin with her claws. Laurel's skin began to break like a glass mirror. "No!" she screamed as she fell towards the window. "Please help me! Don't let me fall!" Catwoman caught her with her whip and started to pull her back into the room. Just then, Laurel saw herself in the glass of the window. "No!" she cried. "My skin!" She touched her face. "I'm not beautiful now." There were some pieces of glass under the whip. They were cutting through it. Suddenly it broke. "Laurel!" Catwoman screamed. She reached for Laurel, but it was too late. Laurel was falling back into the darkness, falling to her death. Patience looked down sadly at Laurel's body in the street below. Lone walked up behind her. "I saw you," he said. "You tried to save her." "Are you surprised?" she asked. "No," he replied. "Not at all." Catwoman kissed Lone. It was a kiss that felt like a new start. Then Catwoman ran off into the darkness. Lone watched her go, and finally, Patience walked through the building. She was very happy. On the walls were lots of pictures by new artists. She stopped and looked at one of the pictures. The artist's name was next to it, Patience Phillips. "I discovered this artist a long time ago," said a male voice behind her, "before she became famous." Patience turned around and saw Lone. She smiled. "Well done, Patience," Lone continued. "I'm really pleased for you." "Thanks," she said. "Your opinion means a lot to me." "Do you think we can ever be happy together?" he asked. "I don't know, Tom," she replied. "I'm just starting to understand who I am. I think I need to be on my own for the moment." "Well, Maybe you won't want to be alone forever. I can wait." He gave her a kiss. "Be good," he said, and turned to go. Patience watched him as he walked away. Who knows, she thought. A woman came up to her. "Your work is very special," she said. "Your colors are wonderful. They're strong and dangerous. I think you have a great future ahead of you." "Thank you," said Patience. "I think I agree." She walked through the crowd with her head high. "For the first time in my life, I believe in myself," she thought. Everything was perfect. In a corner, Ophelia watched her, smiling. Midnight sat next to Ophelia and purred.